Hi guys, welcome to my knitting and crochet blog where I basically sit and talk about knitting and crochet and the items that I finished this week and the items that I've worked on this week, different ideas that I have with yarn floating around in my head. I am generally a garment knitter, so I tend to stick with sweaters, cardigans. Right now, and in fact, this is what I'm currently working on, so spoiler alert, I'm working on a dress for my 8-year-old and it's crocheted. So it's made out of fingering weight yarn and I'm very hopeful that it's going to turn out as good as it is in my head. So I'll talk about that in just a minute. It is January 8th, and I only know this because tomorrow is January 9th, and that's the day that like all of school restarts, and we've got extracurricular activities restarting, and basically everything goes back to the way it was pre-holiday season. So we're looking forward to that, kind of. My kids love school, but you know how school is with kids, right? If they can stay home and play video games all day, they're definitely going to pick that. Work is getting back to normal as well. This will be like the first full week I've had in a couple of weeks, so I mean, it's work, right? I would much rather like be knitting, but I do love my job, so I can't complain too much. I am a software engineer by day and basically a knitter by all the other time that I'm not hanging out with my kids or working. So I have finished a couple of hats this week. I've also finished my Advent cardigan, which I worked on throughout the month of December while opening up my Blackbird Sycamore Yarns Advent. I love it. It's super comfy. The yarn that I used was 75% merino, 25% nylon, and I held it double. The pattern is the Daphne's cardigan, and it is by Rebecca Clow. I made it oversized on purpose because it is getting cold in Michigan and we are getting basically our first snowfall of this season, and it's not what I would consider very, I mean, it's the first snowfall that's sticking, right? And it's been like this throughout the whole week where it kind of snows a little bit and there's trace amounts on the ground and it just makes it super cold, and then it warms up and rains and the snow goes. It's like this whole thing. The next week we're supposed to actually get a storm, and I've kind of ignored the weather and like all mentions of said storm. So I have no clue if it's going to be a huge storm or like one of those storms that the weathercasters kind of pump up and say, hey, this is going to be like Snowmageddon, and then it turns out to be like an inch of snow and school was canceled for no reason and all of that. Anyways, this is the Daphne's cardigan. Like I said, I knit all 24 colors down the body, and the body starts with yellow, and then we've got some pinks and yellow again, and I just love it. I made it oversized. I picked a size, I believe I picked size 4, so I knit size 4, whatever that turned out to be. It was if I was looking for a fitted sweater, I would go with like a 38, and that should like fit me very well. But I've been tending towards larger everything. So even with my t-shirts, I've got this baggy thing going on, and I've pretty much gotten accustomed to wearing larger sizes than like the smalls that I've been wearing. So it's just, it is what it is. I think at this point in my life, with all of my mobility issues, I just don't want to wear grabby clothes too. I enjoyed knitting this. I started it on December 1st. So I actually started with kind of a deficit because you work a button band, and I worked my well, it's not that big, right? But I worked my button band and all of the ribbing in twisted stitch, which is generally what I stick with. I don't particularly like working twisted stitch, but I do. And I do because I think it looks neater. My ribbing especially looks quite bad, just knit purl. So I always twist ribbing. With one caveat, and I'll get to that in a couple of minutes when I show you my other objects. I had basically a blast working on this this cardigan. I'm hoping that I get a lot of use for it when I'm going outside, because it's pretty much like coat status, right? And I've got this big bulky winter coat that I don't like, and I've tended to overheat easier in the last like 2 years. I'll just sweat and sweat. So I'm hoping that I can get away with just wearing something like this, and I guess we'll see how it goes. I love the colors, and I love how bright it is, and I love how squishy it is. Like I said, it's fingering weight held double. The pattern is originally in DK, obviously, and it had come out right before Advent season, and as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh, that's what I'm gonna do. There was no second thoughts about it or anything like that. I just decided, yep, I'm gonna make myself an oversized cardigan and just have it throw over everything. I work from home, so the dress code is a little bit more relaxed in that obviously you have to be presentable and professional, but it's fine to wear, like, I would say something like this or a hoodie or something like that. Just as long as you look what the business would consider professional, because obviously what I would consider professional is a lot more lenient than what they would. I love the yarn that I used, and I'm super excited to work with minis. This project has sparked me to sort of take a look at the minis that I have and say, hey, how could I turn this into something really fun? Because the mini skeins allow you to actually play with color really well, right? And I think that something like this would make a really pretty hat. It would make really pretty mitts. It would make super cute socks. The only downfall to working with a ton of different minis, obviously, is that you have oodles and oodles and oodles of color changes. So in order to deal with the color changes that I would have to make for this cardigan, I worked it as I went. So I would say about 4 or 5 days, so 4 or 5 color changes I would be weaving in the ends. So that made it to where it was a little bit easier to manage. Well, actually a lot easier to manage. I would not know what to do if I had waited until the very end to weave in all these ends. I probably would have gone crazy. I definitely would have just put it in a corner for a couple of months until I actually felt like weaving them all in. It wouldn't have done the sweater justice or the yarn justice or pretty much anything. It would have just been kind of a very big obstacle that would have taken a lot of mental prowess to overcome. How's that? I finished this probably a week ago, except for blocking and putting the buttons in. Now, I chose just plain black buttons. I didn't want anything that was going to distract or detract from all of the colors in the Advent, which I all really love. My favorite is this one right up here. It's the red. It's so good. I swear it's the best color red ever. But I honestly, I loved knitting this. It was so much fun. I have been, so other than finishing the buttons on the cardigan, which I believe I did Friday night. Yeah, it must have been Friday night. So other than that, I've been kind of on a mission to knit some hats. And every couple of months or so, I'll get it in my head that I just need to knit hats. Knit or crochet hats. I love them because they're portable, they're easy to finish, they're super simple to do, and if you knit a hat, the sizing doesn't really matter because there's somebody out there it's going to fit. Now, I very much like knitting ribbed hats, especially because that's super true, right? Because ribbing can stretch super far and kind of cinches in. So if you don't know the size of somebody's head, the best patterns that I would recommend are the ones that have ribbing somehow, in some way, right? I knit my son Rafa's hat from Joji Locatelli. It was late last year in 2023. Happy 2024. I hope you guys had an awesome New Year's. And it is basically just a super simple ribbed hat. I believe it's in worsted, and it's a free pattern. So if you want to give it a try, definitely do it. I would recommend it. It's definitely a good pattern. I believe whenever I finished it, I had said that I wouldn't knit it again, and that's only because ribbing a whole hat is kind of a lot, right? My first well, I can't say my first finished object, right? Because obviously the cardigan's the first one. My second finished object is a hat for my daughter. Now, my daughter is 8. This was made in Cascade 128 Superwash. And it is a hat with a little cat face on it and little cat ears. So I basically just knit a stockinette beanie. I've got some twisted ribbing. I'm gonna say for about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. It's pretty thick, right? But so I knit a beanie and I decided to cast on 84 stitches. I wasn't using a pattern. I decreased. I decreased, and then when I was done, I just knit some triangles and surrounded them with single crochet. So after that, I just put on the whiskers and embroidered a nose and put some amigurumi ears on it. And she seems to like it, and she loves cats, right? She always asks for cat hats. She wants cat hats and cat plushies and cat everything. She loves cats. She is just like me in that regard. I love dogs too, but I am a gigantic cat person. So this was the first hat that I made this week. I did enjoy it, but part of me thinks that the yarn that I used, the pink yarn, the light pink yarn, was a little bit too thick. So I would probably bring it down in weight because it's just so... The feel on it is much different from the yarn that's in the body. It just feels like it's thicker, which is weird because this yarn was worsted and this was 128, which is bulky, I believe. So that's that. She's pleased with it. And since we're dealing with snowfall on and off, she's definitely going to get a huge use out of it, right? So I have this one as well, and I love this, but this is my daughter's too because every 8-year-old apparently needs about 700 hats. But honestly, we can kind of share hats back and forth because my kids have adult-sized heads. They've had adult-sized heads like since they were 3 or 4. I remember when my son was a 3-year-old, I would just make him adult smalls because that's just how it goes. But this is knit from a Madeline Tosh yarn, and it is an ASAP. That's what the base is called, and the color is called Grace Notes. This, I believe, is a super bulky, and it took pretty much no time to knit up, and it took care of my need to knit hats, and it was just I like the bulkiness of it. My daughter has been wearing this around the house, so I attached a cute little fur pom-pom to it, and I'm excited that that's another hat, but we have one more hat. So this is my final finished object. This is a cat hat. This is basically what amounts to a knitted rectangle with ribbing at the bottom, and you 3-needle bind off. Now, let me see if this is going to work or terribly mess up my hair. So, do you see what happens here? We've got cat ears. This is for my daughter, and she loves it. And do you remember how she said that this was like Spider-Man yarn? While I'm making a hat, because you obviously don't know what type of hat you're going to be making until, well, I don't know what hat I'm going to be making until I'd say, you know, I start to care about the decreases. So I just cast on like, how much did I cast on? I believe for this one I cast on 72. For this, no, this was 72 and this was 64. So I had no real inclination of who was getting this hat, what kind of hat it was going to be. I just cast on a number and started knitting. So as I'm knitting it, my daughter keeps looking at it and she goes, "You know what, Mom? That doesn't look like Spider-Man. I like that. That's pink. Can you make me a cat hat?" Well, if you had listened last week, this was actually supposed to be my hat, but I knit it for her anyways. I figure we can just give hats to her friends if they want hats, or, I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? I'll wear the cat hat. Although it's kind of small. My hat pattern of choice is the muscle burrow. And I'll talk about that in a minute because that's going to be one of my future cast-ons. But I do like this as well. This is nice. This actually fits great. This fits over my hair clip, which is good as well because I don't want to keep having to take my hair clip off and put it on and mess with my hair. So this is like the perfect fitting hat. I have a skein of this Madeline Tosh ASAP yarn in red. It's like, I forget what exactly it's the colorway is called, but it's like blood red. And I should totally make myself this exact same hat, but in that red. Sorry, can you hear the sirens? Real life, right? Anyways, those are my finished objects for this week. I have been super happy because I found the perfect pattern to make a dress. Are you ready? Because that's what we're gonna talk about. So last week, let me show this bag really quick. This bag says Knitrovert, willing to discuss yarn. And it has these cute little mermaid cats, which is adorable. I wanted this bag because it has cats on it. and I was not disappointed. I love the cat bags. So anyways, last week I had decided I want to knit my daughter a dress. And the reason I want to knit her a dress is because I have this, let me grab this because I shouldn't have put it back. I have this yarn that is this really, really, really pretty gradient. And this is Shepshi's Whirl. And this is 215 grams for 1,000 meters. This is 60% cotton and 40% acrylic. This is called Raspberry Rocky Roads. And how much is in here? It's quite a bit. It's like 1,100 yards, I believe. We're just going to say it's 1,100 yards because I can't remember how much it is. I'll put it down below. This is such a pretty color. I love it. This is going to turn into a dress. And that's exactly what I had decided to do last week. I went on Ravelry to basically search back and forth to find the perfect dress, the perfect idea for a dress. And last week I had talked about how I wanted like a swirly twirly dress, right? So I found this. And it's not going to show up well because it's printed in black and white. So I will put some pictures of from the pattern page up here. But what it is basically a dress that ends in like a star blanket. And that's exactly what I had wanted. My daughter is 8 years old and we've got 6 to 8 years old, 9 to 13. From what I can see and what I have worked so far, the pattern is super size as you go, right? It's more like what I would consider a recipe than an actual pattern. So this is what I have so far. So what we have here is just the start of it. This is the neck. And you work up enough to where you can cinch under the arms. And then you basically start working the body after you connect the arms and you have little armholes. So I haven't decided because, like I said, this is more like a recipe than an actual pattern. Well, I mean, it is an actual pattern, but it's a very choose your own adventure. You can choose how many different points you have. You can choose where you start the dress part and where you end the body. You can choose how long it goes. There's definitely a lot of choices. So I'm actually using a Shepshi's Whirlette, which is basically this whirl yarn, but solid color and obviously much smaller. So since my daughter is a size, I'm gonna go with 8. I needed extra yarn and this wasn't going to be enough, especially if I want it to be as twirly whirly as I want it to be, right? So I started with this gray color, which is where the middle of this starts. And I have 2 other colors as options to continue on the dress once I finish. I've got this one, which is Crushed Candy. And there's this one, which is Cowlus. I have no idea how to say that. But it's kind of like a bright reddish pink. And so is the other one. They're very close. None of them, they did not have this bright pink. I wish that they had this bright pink, but that is not one of the colors that they have in their wheelhouse. So what I'm going to do is fade this pink into one of these colors. I guess depending on which one I feel like matches the best at that given moment. but I cannot wait to get to where I'm not working the top, the neck part of it, and I can cinch in for the underarms. Look at that. That's so cute. The one issue that's been bobbing around in my mind is this is going to be a very heavy, bottom heavy dress. So I'm trying to not make the armholes any more oversized than they absolutely have to be, because the bottom of this is going to pull and pull. I'm hoping that because it's there's some cotton in it, that it can be washed and shrink back up. But I guess we'll see, right? If worst comes to worst and it stretches back out and she can't wear it anymore, I will snip the yarn and make a star blanket out of it, because this yarn right here is just way too pretty to just, you know, not be used. That is my, like, I'd say that at any given time I'm working on like some garment of some sort and then some smaller projects. I used to be a monogamous knitter to where I would only knit on one thing, and generally that's the case, but it really depends on how overwhelming the main project that I'm doing is. So for this crochet dress, it's not, I wouldn't consider it overwhelming. Plus it's crochet, which generally goes faster and is just a little bit more forgiving, in my opinion, than I would say something like this, which was very hard to concentrate on anything else on. It's not that the pattern itself was hard, it was just there was a lot going on. My brain has like a craft space compartment, and like if my main project is taking up this much of it and there's only this much left, I've got enough left in me to maybe do a muscle burrow, which is what I'm going to talk about next. Okay, this is going to be crinkly and I'm sorry. So I've mentioned before about Blackbird Sycamore yarn, and that's who dyed this advent. So let me find the specific skein I have to show you, because I got a couple and I'm just going to grab the ones that I have not shown you before because they're beautiful. So I want you to take a look at this. Now look at this yarn and guess what this yarn should be called, because once I tell you the name of it, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, she nailed it, because she really did. It's absolutely beautiful. And let me show you this way too. Oh, it's so pretty. This yarn is called Starry Night. So pretty. I am going to make a muscle burrow out of this. This needs to be a muscle burrow. And when I was picking out yarn for my son, he was basically torn between this Starry Night color and this one, which I also love. This is called Red Room. Now, what I'm thinking, and he doesn't know this yet, is that I'm going to make his muscle burrow out of this, and I am going to make me one out of this Starry Night. And if he steals it, I guess that's okay. I will forgive him, but I will be sad. I love these yarns. So I placed an order for Blackbird Sycamore yarn, and Stephanie actually reached out and asked if I wanted the yarn wound. So that was super sweet of her. She does wind yarn. I never knew that or realized that, but they came in like such pretty cakes, and when my husband saw, he's like, yay, I don't have to wind them. He really did say that, by the way. So this is another color that I got, and I have plans for this. So this is Antique, and it's like a really pretty creamy pink color. So I have some pink mini skeins, and I want to take this and basically make a sweater with this pinky color as the base and the pink mini skeins. It will, I believe it's going to be a sweater, and it's going to be way more fitted than this, but I'm thinking maybe the Funfetti, is that what it's called? Funfetti sweater, maybe? Or maybe I'll take the Funfetti sweater and then just break it in the front and do it as a cardigan. But I saw this and I thought, this is such a pretty base color, and I'd love to make something with it. So that's what I'm going to be intending on doing. I am going to be making my mom her Irish gold from Joji Locatelli, and this was actually the reason that I made this order. I had to get a couple of more skeins of black number 1, and look, I love it. It's so pretty. It's not zooming in. This is the base color that I used for this cardigan. My mom had basically reached out and she's like, can you make me a cardigan? Well, at first she goes, can you make me a sweater? And I'm like, well, sure, I can make you one. Do you want a cardigan or do you want a sweater? And she's like, well, I want a cardigan, but that's harder to make, right? No, they're both the same. So we decided to basically pick Irish Gold by Joji Locatelli, which is a new pattern for her. And I'm going to be starting on it sometime in the very near future. I want to get her dress basically done before I start the Joji Locatelli thing, because my mom wears a bigger size than I do, and it's going to be a little bit more knitting, because unlike this where you hold fingering weight double, you're holding fingering weight single. So it's going to be a lot of knitting. It's going to be a lot of fun though, but well, that was the end of the yarn content and the knitting content that I have. I've been pretty busy this week. I've got this, which is, I mean, that little dress is basically like wearing a blanket with an attached shirt, right? My daughter's tiny, but still, it's a lot. Okay, so I shouldn't say that's all of the crafting content I have, because I'm going to pop in and say this. I'll put a picture up here, right? My daughter wants me to make her a cat plushie. So I don't know what gets into her, but she gets these ideas where she just wants this specific item and doesn't want anything else. So I want to make her a dress, and I think it would be cute. But she'll wear the dress and she'll love the dress, but she wants a cat plushie. So I went on Etsy yesterday and I found a really cute pattern that had 3 different cat amigurumi stuffy patterns in it, and I bought the bundle. So now I have 3 different cat patterns, and one of them is a calico cat. My daughter loves calico cats. I mean, I don't know why. Well, obviously I know why. She thinks they're cute, but like, to me, all cats are cute. So to each their own. She wants me to make her a calico cat stuffy. which is difficult because they have splotches of orange and black and white. So this is, I guess, a way to practice color work. Crochet color work, which is a different avenue than what I was expecting, but still. Amigurumis are a way to practice finishing, so that's a good way to kind of bring in my 2024 goals, as well as the whole color work avenue. So expect, I guess, a cat plushie in the coming weeks. I can't promise it will be done by next time, but hopefully the time after that. She's super excited about it. And then she's like, Mom, maybe if it's not hard, you can make my friend one too. And I'm just like, it's not that I mind. I don't mind. But one of the things that drives me crazy about amigurumis is that I can never get the face right. Right? I mean, no matter what I do and how many times I try, it just seems like the face is always weird on mine. And I look at all of these people who make like amazing, beautiful amigurumis and dolls that like have beautiful faces, and they've got like blush on and the stitches are so perfect. And then you see mine and it's not like that. And I wish it were. Maybe practice makes perfect. I hope practice makes perfect, because by the time my daughter is 18, I should be like master of amigurumis. One of her favorite things to play with are plushies. She loves stuffed animals. I will sit and watch her play with all of the plushies that I've made her over the years, and it's a good feeling, right? And they're super I wouldn't say simple, but they're quicker because they're smaller than like sweaters. So I shouldn't complain too much, but they're difficult. Those little plushies, the amigurumis, those are difficult. Major props to anybody who can make an amigurumi look like what it's actually supposed to look like. Here's hoping my cat doesn't end up looking like, what was it? I made her a cat. Yes, it was a cat. And she looked at it and she's like, Mom, it looks like a bunny. She loves the bunny, but it's a bunny cat. So that's what we call it from now on. It's the bunny cat. I mean, I tried, right? Okay, so that is definitely the end of the knitting and yarn and crochet crafty goodness that's been going on this week. Last week was the first full week of the year, and we didn't do a lot. We went to Target, which is like the first time we've been to Target since before COVID. So it was definitely a fun experience for my daughter, who was super excited. She loves like going to stores and stuff. My son, not so much. He's been busy with video gaming, so he is officially now a 13-year-old. I can't believe it. I remember when he was like this tiny, well, not that tiny, more like this tiny. When he was born, he was 6 pounds, 6 ounces. So he was tiny, but not this tiny. When I was born, I was 4 pounds, 10 ounces. I was a month. Was that it all? I must have been like a month and a half early, because 4 pounds, 10 ounces is pretty small. My kids were a month early. My daughter was a month early exactly, and she was 6 pounds, 11 ounces. She was almost 7 pounds, but my son he was the smaller one. He was also born a month and 4 days early, so he had a little less time than she did. Anyways, I'm getting off track. This has been the first week of the year. Work is going great. I am 21% done with my AWS course for Solutions Architect that I've been doing on Cantrell.io. So I'm excited about that. Now keep in mind, I will probably have to go through this course like 3 or 4 times. And it is a huge course, but it's probably going to be 4 to 5 months before I even kind of feel confident to take a practice exam. But it is what it is. I'm having fun and I'm learning. As for reading, what have I read? I'm reading right now Last Breath by Karen Slaughter, which is a prequel to The Good Daughter. And I did like The Good Daughter and I've read it. But now I'm reading Last Breath and it's like a mini book. So we're talking 5-ish hours. But it's going good and I like it so far. I kind of wish that there were more from these characters. I do like them. But I'm pretty sure there isn't anything else. The other book that I read in the last week is Needful Things, which is a true Stephen King book. It is 25 hours. It is about this shop owner. Shop owner, yeah. We're going to go with shop owner. It is a demon slash monster shop owner that moves into Castle Rock, Maine, which is where Stephen King bases a lot of his stories around. And the shop owner sells this just random assortment of everything from baseball cards to china to lamps, just all sorts of things. And he sells the items for lower costs, but asks for some sort of favor. And his favors generally involve playing pranks on other town members. That's how he that's how he introduces the idea of pranks. Harmless pranks. They're not going to hurt anybody. Well, spoiler alert, this is a Stephen King story. So everything that this shop owner does is very calculated to cause and wreak enormous amounts of chaos and havoc, and people end up having basically gun fights and knife fights, and it's just crazy. It's crazy. It was an interesting book. It wasn't my favorite Stephen King book. Towards the end, because it was 25 hours, towards the end, I was kind of very much ready for it to be over, which is sad because I really didn't want to feel that way, but I did. So my next Stephen King book that I'm probably going to read is Pet Sematary, and we'll just see how that goes. I did listen to basically the author's note for Pet Sematary, and whenever he wrote that author's note, he was talking about how he was asked what the most terrifying book is that he thinks that he wrote, and he said Pet Sematary would be it. He bases a lot of Pet Sematary off of real things that happened while he was living in an area of Maine that had a very busy road in front of it. And I never knew any of this, so it was pretty eye-opening. It's exciting for me to go read these stories that I may have watched a movie of, or stories that I've never really read, right? One of the benefits of being an older adult is you can look at things that you've always heard about but never really looked into, and now that you're older, you look into it and you're like, wow, I understand a little bit better. That's pretty much it for work and life and books. No more books here, unfortunately. I have been working very, very hard at trying to get more of a holding on that course. Like I said, 21% done. I have no clue how many hours it is, but it's a lot. So that's pretty much what I'm going to be focusing on for now. I have been watching and trying very hard to catch up with knitting and crochet podcasts. Especially now that Vlogmas is over, I am one of those people that tend to get like very overwhelmed with Vlogmas and all of the, like when I go to my subscriptions and there's just so many, I'm like, oh no, who do I watch? Who do I not watch? Because I only have like so many hours in the day. So I just kind of blank out for December and then come back when everybody's back to like their regularly scheduled program, because I do love watching everybody's knitting podcasts and crochet podcasts, and it just makes me very happy. So other than that, happy 2024. I hope you guys had an amazing and super safe and super happy and super loving, caring, just exciting New Year's. I hope that your 2024 turns out to be super awesome. And I thank you all for coming and spending pretty close to an hour with me today. I hope that you got a lot of knitting or crochet or general crafty goodness done. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you feel like it, please subscribe. I would love to see you guys back. Thank you so much. Bye.